In this video, we're doing an update of Cardano. We're looking at the ADA price against the US dollar. We're looking at the ADA price against Bitcoin. And we're also going to look at the ADA price against Ethereum. So if you don't understand what that is, don't stress. We're going to go through it in today's video. And this is important to understand our risk management based on an investor of ADA. And this is the big warning. There's a lot of things that come with investing in speculative altcoins, in particular something like ADA, which has seen over 90% losses in the past. So this is something that needs to be said and often isn't said that often, especially with the likes of Moonboy type crypto investors around ADA. So we're going to just look at the charts, look at the facts, what's going on, and not get too emotionally involved in the cryptocurrency that we are investing in here. So without further ado, smash up the likes, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, hit that bell notification icon as well so you can be updated with the cryptocurrency content here on the channel, the Hopium free goodness right here. And if you are looking to stake your ADA, link to our investor accelerator Cardano staking pool is in the video description. Check that out. I'll give you an update of the rewards as well in this video. They have been doing extremely well over the last several months, even though the market has been down. All right, let's dive in. No surprises that the market is still in extreme fear. We've been trending around extreme fear for the last 15 or so days. And while the market is in extreme fear, we can't expect the price to be surging to new all-time highs or even come back to test any of the previous support levels. But some are taking this opportunity as an opportunity to dollar cost average into cryptos like ADA. But in this video, I want to specifically look at the possibility of further downside in ADA. Of course, not to spread any sort of FUD, but just looking entirely at the charts and the facts that we have seen on these price charts. So that's not to say that the development isn't going ahead. Of course, we're seeing some development in the ADA ecosystem, but it's not moving as fast as other ecosystems are. And of course, that's because it's a different ecosystem altogether. Cardano is on a different programming language, and unfortunately, Charles Hoskinson has used a rather difficult programming language, which doesn't have a lot of developers out there as it is. And the ones who are out there may not even want to work on Cardano. So that's something that we have seen before. That stuff has been said already, and that is some of the reasons why it is difficult to get some of this development going on Cardano. Not just my opinion, but what is actually going on out there. But what we can see is, of course, the total value locked in all of DeFi has been decimated over the last few weeks. Of course, we've seen the Lunar ecosystem blow up, and we're down now to 87 billion. So what has this got to do with ADA? Well, ADA is still a very, very small percentage of this entire ecosystem. So if the development can improve over the coming months with the hard fork coming up next month and the rest of the development, then hopefully we're going to see some more developers come into the space, start to kick this project along a little faster, especially while the market is down, when it is a good time to be developing. And so we can see a lot of these other metrics pick up in the ecosystem. So the total value locked, like we saw, is about 86.7 billion. ADA only has about 128 million of that. Their DEXs really don't account for much in the entire ecosystem. Look at the stuff like Uniswap, $1.3 billion of 24-hour volume, 700 million for DYDX, PancakeSwap. These are all in the hundreds of millions. You can go all the way down. You've got tens of millions, and then even millions of dollars for stuff that we might not even heard of before, and even old DEXs. Whereas something like SundaySwap barely has $500,000 traded on it. So there really needs to be a lot more use happening on ADA over the coming years. Otherwise, it's going to miss out. So this isn't FUD. This is essentially the numbers and the facts that we're seeing within the current ecosystem. So we really want to see this start to pick up, and Charles to stop screwing around whatever he's doing and get on with finishing this project, or at least speeding up the process for projects to be able to come onto the ecosystem or into the ecosystem and build it out so that we get more use within the ecosystem. So that's kind of a brief update of what's going on out there in terms of the usage. We could go into a lot more detail, but I think it's more important at this stage to be looking at the price charts, especially the US dollar chart, which I know most people follow. But for me, more importantly, is looking at the ADABTC and ADAETH chart to see how much further these could fall, or maybe we'll see some sort of support levels. obviously we'll start with Bitcoin, just having a look at where we currently sit, just trading slightly under the lows that were set through that May to July bear market. And so the market has been sitting up at these levels. Of course, if we continue to grind out here in terms of the Bitcoin price and we don't break below the low that was set on the 12th of May, this is going to be good news for a short-term pump for altcoins because I think Bitcoin will also have at least a rally here to come back and test some of these lower levels in the 30,000s. So I talk about this before on the channel plenty of times. I'll leave links at the end of this video for the Bitcoin updates. There's a lot of good stuff in those, so make sure you stick around and check that out. So in terms of a short term, look, if we get this turnaround for Bitcoin in the next couple of weeks, then of course the rest of the altcoins are going to move. The same deal as when the market goes down, or Bitcoin goes down, then the rest of the altcoins go down. As for the ADA price, now this is something that we've covered since late 2020 and early 2021 was when I first started to really look at trading ADA, not necessarily investing in it long term. Because if you think back, this is where we currently were. We're in this December breakout period into January. So it started to push through 30 cents, 40 cents, getting closer to that dollar at that point. And so the run had kind of already started. And the mindset out there at the time, if you weren't around in early January, a lot of people were looking to invest in ADA on a weekly basis or monthly basis and hold this thing for the long term because they believed whatever Charles was telling us at that time. So this all ties into that massive warning that I put out on these videos, because although these can be great projects, the time to be investing in them is these sort of areas, is the accumulation zone, when they are basically looking at being dead. And so these ranges are also going to be pretty massive. Like we can see from 2 cents to 10 cents. That's a pretty decent return. You got a few 100% there, all the way to that top. So, 300-400%. They're great trading ranges, and these can last a very long time. So you look from that low to the COVID crash low, that's 66 bars, which is on a weekly chart. It's going to be a year and 3 or 4 months. So there's a long time that we have to wait for the dollar cost averaging period. And there's a lot of opportunity within that. And there's going to be a very big swings, so wild fluctuations over the period of a year or year and a half. So that's what I think we have to look forward to for ADA. So going back to when I was covering this on the channel earlier and earlier in 2021 and late 2020, I don't see these times when the market is really charging up, doing a lot of gains in a very short period of time as a great time to be buying a particular asset, in this case ADA, as a long-term investment. It's a great trade, and I treated it as a trade. And you can go back and see those videos on the channel where I was looking at trading it and selling out at the peak. So this was $1.50. There's a video specifically on that day. I got lucky on that day and saw that the February high at around that $1.50 was a great time to be trading in and out of ADA, because you can see the market just went flat for quite some period. We got a breakout. So I got another video just looking at that as a trade, a breakout trade, going from $1.50 or $1.60 to that peak of $2.40 or $2.50. It's a good trade. And then the market got rejected, came all the way back down, and gave us another opportunity to get in for another trade. So I'm really trying to separate the two here, depending on what sort of player you are in the cryptocurrency space. Do you want to trade on shorter term, so I'd say weekly or monthly type of setups, or do you want to be a longer term investor? So for a trader, it's going to be much more difficult in these accumulation periods because it's going to take more patience. You can see the market took quite a long time to go from these lows to these highs to give you a few 100% return. 28 bars, so about 6 months. 6 months if you're trading, and you had a few swings back down in between. So from the low, if you got the exact low, about a month up and then a month down, and then you had a couple of weeks up and down. So that's just looking at this in much closer detail. So you can see the way the market moved up and down. Now, if you want a bit of color, let's throw that on as well. But going from then these lows to this high, you had 8 bars, so 2 months to get up to those highs. It's good returns, but it's just going to take a little bit of time. So that's more for me. I see that as like an investing period where you just say, I'm just going to buy this thing every week, provided it's maybe at this section, I'll buy more here, and I'll buy less as the market rises up to test some of the previous support levels as resistance. So I'll buy 3 lots of ADA And then here I might just buy one lot of ADA. So maybe I buy $300 at these levels every week. Maybe I'll buy $100 of ADA at these levels up here. And this is the accumulation zone. So that's how I would set that up. But once the market starts getting onto a charge like this, that for me is not the time to be looking to buy ADA and hold it for long-term positions, because from history we know that altcoins, ADA is an altcoin, it hasn't proven itself yet. Just like we looked at in terms of the intro, there's really not that much going on the ecosystem compared to other ecosystems. Just what it is out there. I'm not trying to spread any sort of FUD, because now we've seen the losses that a lot of people have made. I would say over 95% of ADA investors are following some sort of Hopium moon boy type Cardano channel, telling them that everything is going to be all right. And they've been telling them everything's going to be all right since $3. And we're now at 51 cents. We went to a low of 38 cents. So these things happen time and time again. So there's your bull market from 2021 into later half of 2020 into later half of 2021. So I'm trying to make sure people remain safe in the markets. Don't get swept up in the Hopium, in the moon boy crap, in the maximalism of Cardano, especially with particular YouTube channels who are doubling down or tripling down on ADA as pretty much the only thing that they talk about. This is not a broad view of any sort of investment. It's a not very smart way, in my opinion, to try and make money from the markets, because at the wrong times, a lot of people usually get in, and then at the wrong times, they're basically trying to dollar cost average in on the way down. This to me is probably the best period, and you have a lot of time to pick that up. So it's not, you don't have to be extremely smart. You don't have to be, you don't have to do a ton of research into it. You just need to see what these patterns are like and just wait it out. Be patient in that zone, because you can accumulate a lot of a crypto. In this case, we're looking at ADA in a reasonable amount of time. Like we saw, it was about 66 weeks to that low, and then you could still be accumulating it all the way up to where these previous highs were. So that still gives you 86 weeks, and then you get the first breakout, and then the market's gone. So there's another 110 bars. So you could accumulate for 2 years during this period between 2 cents and about 15 cents, and you still make excellent returns towards that peak. But you just have to also have a plan to sell out. So that's the way I was looking at the market. That's a trader's market to me. When we're in a bull market, it's not a time to be holding long term. Now we're on the way down. Again, I would see this as a trader's market. If we do see any sort of bounces, it's going to be much more difficult to trade long. The relief rallies are probably going to be smaller, as we've seen already from these previous lows in March to the peaks, only about 60%. I say only because it's low to high, so you might not get the exact bottom and you might not sell the exact top. You might just take a little chunk out of the middle, and the risk is a lot higher. The other things to be aware of in the bear market are news headlines. That's what I've got here. And again, videos on the channel. Sunday Swap was coming out in that early stage of December, or at least the announcements of Sunday Swap coming, and it's going to be all good. That were these little peaks here in December. And then we had the peaks in January when it's released. If it wasn't even released in that day, it doesn't even matter, because these times were all just rejections of the 50% level. But the news headlines were coming around those times of December and into January. And you can see that the market just was whacked back down at $1.60. They're the peaks there, the wicks on those weekly bars, so on a more macro time frame. And then because we're in a bear market, the news headlines don't really mean anything apart from a short-term pump. And so in terms of a time frame, here are the pumps. 1 to 2 weeks up. Again, you got a green bar, and then it wicked out before it got slammed back down in January. Yes, I know the rest of the market crashed as well, but the cycle is down, and therefore the good news of something else being released on the network isn't going to make that much of an effect like it would in a bull market. Again, big warning. That's the stuff where people lose money because they're trying to dollar cost average in here at $1.20 or $1.60 because of the good news. And you'd say, well, we're back at support levels here at around $1.10 or $1.20. But then again, they broke down. So don't be scared to sell out either. Don't be scared to take a loss, relatively small loss if you're getting in at these times when the news headlines were out, and then just waiting for a better opportunity. It does take patience. Remember, that's January. We're now 5 months later, and we've halved in price, over 50% down from those levels when the Sunday Swap headlines came out. We're at 76% down at the low of 2 weeks ago, and we're now at 69% at the current price. So I wouldn't be overly concerned if I'm not getting into the market at this stage, because it still looks like we could see further downside. So I drew this little squiggle in here back in January, looking at the market just sort of trending sideways. We did get a little peek out, and now we've come all the way back underneath it. So let's remove that and then just look at potential downside to this market. So if we don't hold up at these current levels of 40 cents, and this was a target that I had set many months ago. I know I've seen a lot of people say it's ridiculous. Some people could understand that that is possible for ADA. The next target down is probably within this zone here, the breakout zone that ADA saw back in 2020. So you can see the market was accumulating, and then we had the breakout of the accumulation. Now, I dare say we'll probably test the breakout of the accumulation, but this could take us probably several more months from this point. And looking at where the current price is, 51 cents, back down to the tops of those levels is about another 64 or so percent, back to about 18 cents. You want to say 20 cents, maybe you start DCAing in at 20 cents. That's about 60% down. Maybe the bottom of these ranges. So just looking at the highs of this accumulation zone and the lows where it retested it again back at 10 or 9 cents, that's about 80% down from the current price. And so if you take a range of, say, planning out, say, I'll start dollar cost averaging into ADA once it hits 20 cents, and then your dollar cost averaging all the way down, you can see where the price has been before. So maybe your dollar cost average between 20 and any price lower, call it 6 or 7 or 8 cents. If it ever gets there, maybe it doesn't. Then you can see within that range though, if you start at 20 cents and it dropped to 10 cents, you'd still be down 50%. But that's going to be part of your dollar cost averaging plan at that time. But personally, I think it's going to take a little while longer. We look back in history, there was the top in January 2018 to the drop to the low. That's about 48 bars, so call it a year. Then to that low before the COVID crash was another 103 bars. So that's 2 years. And then you go to the COVID crash low, there's another 2 or 3 months later. So about 2.5 years before we started to climb our way out of the accumulation zone. And so where we currently are from this peak in August, 1 year takes us out to about August this year. We go 2 years out, that's going to be about August of 2023. And then if you want to throw another few months on that, that's going to be late 2023 as well. So this for ADA might take a little bit of time. So we're really looking towards Q3 or Q4 of this year, give it a few more months for an accumulation zone, and then start to look for any sort of breakouts of the accumulation zone. But what we've seen in the past is we have plenty of time to get into an accumulation. Now, could this be wrong? Could we be invalidated if this price never goes lower? It never breaks 35 or 38 cents, and that's the low of ADA for this bear cycle? Sure, it's possible. At this stage, I don't think it's likely, even though I think we'll probably come back and test the lows here at around 75 cents. Maybe we get a bounce up there and we get like a 50% move from that low or 100% move. That's all part of the moves down, like you can see in the past. It's gone from the lows, it's bounced up 200%, but then it's basically dumped all the way back down. So you can get quite excited before that next drop, which is another 90 or so percent. So basically the warning is really stay safe. There's going to be a lot of hopium pumps throughout the rest of this potential move down. If I am wrong and this is the final low, we will see this sort of pattern, this accumulation happen from this point right now, and we will get signals to tell us that the market will be strengthening and we won't go below 35 cents. So it'll start to break above those previous levels and then hold above them and work its way higher from that point. So that would be the invalidation of that. But I'm willing to bet that we'll probably go lower into this sort of zone again and test that area of between sort of 10 and 20 odd cents, 20, 25 cents before we're ready to move again. And the reason being is looking at the Bitcoin chart and also the ETH chart. So I'm doing a pretty big update here for Cardano because there is still downside. Unfortunately, I'm trying to spread all that sort of FUD or anything like that, but there still is some downside here before we're ready to go again. The beauty about it is, like I've said many times, it gives us time to set a plan and just be patient, set some alerts and see what the market is doing when it hits those areas. So I can see I've got some areas in mind here. So you can see the previous support zones, the market dropped from ADABTC. It dropped into these lows back in August of 2019. And remember, June and July and August on Bitcoin was actually a peak. That was this mini peak here. It was pretty significant at the time. There was a lot of excitement because this was coming up into the halvening for Bitcoin. June, July peak, August, the market is still up. So this was a pretty big move up for Bitcoin. But you can see for ADA, it was basically ADABTC is basically the bottom for ADABTC before it started to grind its way out. So it's still a long way before the Bitcoin value really started to take off against, or the ADA value started to take off against Bitcoin. The same sort of thing happened for ETH. You can see these lows are around March 2020, December 2020, and then it had a very short-lived move from January 2021 into February 2021. So it was a very, very short-lived move before the market basically churned sideways, got rejected at 50% again of this entire range, and has since collapsed from that point. So we really haven't seen much from ADA since February of 2021 against the Ethereum value, which means Ethereum has been a better investment for that period of time because ADA has been going down against Ethereum. So I'm looking for a potential of a new high trading range. I put this up here. It never happened. And now we've been rejected off our smaller 50% level. So we just zoom in the high to use this low, 50% rejection after 1 week, then all the way back down. And the market is basically back into that trading range that it put in from July 2019 all the way to January of 2021. So a 1.5 year trading range against ETH. The critical warning thing here for ADA investors to possibly not go too heavy into ADA compared to ETH is if this chart breaks down. So if ADA ETH breaks these lows at 0.00019, okay, so let's just look for that 1900 point. If it breaks that, we're probably going to go a little bit lower, maybe a fair bit lower against the ETH value. So you want to see where this chart starts to base out again, and then look for an accumulation zone for Cardano, because that would mean that ADA is starting to base out against ETH. So you can get some higher prices on your ADA versus Ethereum, which Ethereum is a lower risk. That's not just my opinion. That's how the market is viewing these cryptos at the moment, because you can see who's buying what on the chart here. This is ADA ETH, and people are buying more Ethereum than they are ADA, which is causing this chart to go down. Same deal for ADA Bitcoin. People are seeing more value in Bitcoin than they are in ADA at this point in time, which is causing this chart to go down as well. So you look for some sort of basing on these charts and then start to use that as an accumulation period. So you can see, even though the dollar value was basing out in December or December of 2018, it still had a fair bit of time into 2019 for the dollar value, but this was probably the best value time for buying ADA, which was around that sort of August, September, October, November of 2019, even though there was a rally in early 2019. Look at the lows here in quarter 3 of 2019. That was the low against Bitcoin as well. The lows for ADA ETH. We had some lows in July, August, September of 2019 as well. So for one period, it was at the lowest against all of these cryptos, including the US dollar. So that's going to be the best value time. So going back to where we currently sit, I don't see this pattern happening just yet. Of course, I can always be wrong. But Bitcoin also looks like it wants to go down a little bit further based on my 4-year cycle theory as well, which I've left a link to at the end of this video. There'll be a playlist popping up over the other side of the screen there. And in terms of ADA, I think there's still more time with the ADAUSD, which then also leaves us with more time for ADABTC, and again, more time for ADA ETH. I don't think there's any rush. Even if we do see some bounces here, there's going to be some good trading ranges. Investing is going to come soon. That is my honest Hopium-free analysis of ADA, its fundamentals at this point, but more importantly, the price chart against the US dollar, against Bitcoin, and against ETH. The last thing I wanted to show you is an update of the staking pool rewards. If you've had your ADA staked with the TIA staking pool, I've got links to this in the video description, also a tutorial if you don't know how to stake your own ADA. The average generally should be about 100%. That's if you're going to get those average rewards that the ecosystem says you should be picking up. We've been above the average for quite a long time now, which is a good sign. It's great to see that we are slightly above the average. Now, this should, over time, sort of settle out about 100%. But for now, we're sitting at about 114%. So congrats to the guys who've been holding in there. Unfortunately, the price, of course, has been down a lot. But if you have been holding this since prior to the previous bull market, you sort of look from that downside. I know a lot of people love to look at that. You look at those lows. If you did get into that accumulation range, well, then you're still up sort of 1,500%, and you're getting above average rewards staking with the TIA staking pool. So yeah, check that out if you are interested. I'll see you guys at the next video. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. And of course, there's also links to Bybit and SwiftX, huge sign up bonuses down there. Catch you guys at the next one. Until then, have more fun to get more done.